Hi everyone, this is Kang Hee-nuk, professor of University of Gyeonggi, Seoul, Korea. I'm very glad to participate in this, the first UNESCO International Center for Documentary Heritage's webinar named Documentary Heritage. My major is Archaeology of Eurasia and Silk Road, so I'm very happy to have this chance to give you a talk about my latest work and my opinion about the Silk Road in the opinion from the Korean archaeologist. So my talk named Archaeological Perspectives on the Earliest Relation of Korean Peninsula with Silk Road and Eurasian Steppe. Yeah, you may be wonder that I named not only Silk Road but also Eurasian Steppe. Yes, many people think about the Silk Road just about the caravan route from Xi'an until the Rome. But Silk Road based on the 5,000 years of the Eurasian steppe route. Nomadic people, lived on the Eurasian steppe from about the 35th century BCE, and that was the base on the Silk Road. So I want to extend the meaning and significance of the early relationship with Silk Road to Korea, not before the Han Dynasty, and in this talk I will focus on the 1st century to 4th century BCE, when the Saka people from Kazakhstan intrude into the North Korea, North China, and further Manchuria and China. From a geographical perspective, it seems only natural that ancient Korea would have had, in several aspects, considerable interaction with and influence from the region to its north and the steppe and Silk Road. However, actual access for most people to that region has been completely blocked since before 1990s. Even if this barrier were all at once to disappear, a practical study on this subject requires considerable effort and seems unlikely to take place soon. It's because there's very few specialists to understand the Russian archaeology in Korea, and compared to Korean Peninsula, Silk Road region and Eurasia is too widely. So up to now, most of the Korean archaeologists and historians did not study and not so acquainted of this kind of situation in Silk Road. In this talk, I aim to provide evidence based on archaeological findings that demonstrate the actual interchange between the Korean Peninsula and the northern Eurasian steppe region in the early Silk Road. It is worthwhile to mention that the 1st century BCE has special meaning in East Asian history. At the time, Saka culture was flowing rapidly to the Great Wall region of China, and in Manchuria, Gojoseon, or ancient Joseon, went through a drastic social transformation from networking migratory lifestyles to territorialism. I will examine not only how the spread of Saka culture from Central Asia progressed into the formation of early Shunnu, but also how it spread into the Northern nomad culture during the early Silla period. Throughout, I will re-examine the possibility of early relationship of Silk Road and Korea before Han Dynasty. And next chapter is about the Saka culture of Central Asia and Northern China. First of all, let me introduce my latest investigation on Saka culture in Kazakhstan and Silk Road within about 5 years. From 1915 up to now, I and the Research Institute of Cultural Heritage in Korea conducted several projects on the Silk Road and the archaeology of Kazakhstan. The Research Institute of Cultural Heritage annually carry out the several archaeological excavation, and my project with institution is studied the previous excavated documented material, because for archaeologists not only excavation also important to figure out what has been excavated, because in the Soviet era most of the significant findings and discovery was not well known for another nation like Korea or the Western stage. So I focused out on these material that found in these the blocked time beyond the Iron Curtain. So let's see. The first is the golden culture of Kazakhstan. This is the catalog of the gold material, the masterpiece of the Kazakhstan Saka cultures, published in 1917. In this volume, we showed up and introduced most of the masterpiece from E.C. Goldman, Shillikti, and so many the newly founded gold material from Saka. It strongly shows that the characteristic of Saka golden culture and the finding from the Saka kurgans. And the right one is the catalog for the exhibition of the Kazakhstan in the land of goldmen. It was hosted with the helping from the Kazakhstan government. There was a goldman from Ishik were exhibited in Korea, and subsequently there was many articles from me and another specialist about the significance of the Kazakhstan Saka culture. And next, as the name is the Shungnu, the Art of an Empire, published in 2020 in 2 languages, in Mongol and Shungnu. By the way, the Kazakhstan catalog was published in 3 languages, Russian, Kazakh, and Korean, with the English resume. All these ones you can download by free from the site of the Research Institute of Cultural Heritage of Korea. And the Shungnu catalog show the recent discovery from the Mongol and their excavation of noble tombs and kurgan. There were so many Scythian style, animal style, and sometimes from Persian carpet and Chinese utensil, and some kind of the pottery who are related from the Manchuria. And the next is the encyclopedia. Encyclopedia of the Silk Road of the Eastern Turkestan or Xinjiang. We compiled most of significant sites, artifacts, and researchers who are concerned about the Silk Road. It consists of more than 10,000. It consists with more than 1,000 pages. So I could speak that we have gathered almost the latest discovery from the Xinjiang of China. And my corporate work is translation. The late Karl Baipakov wrote a colossal book named The Great Silk Road of Kazakhstan, which are published in 2007. And I privately asked him to revise that book for translation, and he agreed. And Professor Karl Baipakov, he sent us many revision of his late book, and he have changed many the illustrations and photos with the newly upgraded. And I and my translator worked on his text, and we gave our most effort to understand the contemporary circumstance of Silk Road study in Kazakhstan. So you can download it from the site. So like this, everybody in Korea now and in some degree can reach out the latest Saka cultures. And furthermore, I have also investigated some materials from the Saka culture during preparing the gold culture of Kazakhstan in 2016 and 17. We can investigate with the help of the Kazakhstan, the museum in Almaty and Nur Sultan. We can investigate most of the significant gold materials from Issyk Kurgan in Almaty. You may know this the famous the goldman of Issyk, which was excavated in the 1970. And while during the investigation, I strongly found the similarity of the Saka gold material with Ordos plateau and Beijing region's nomad. So I suggest that there should be the great influx of Saka gold culture to East Asia via Great Wall region. So this is the main theme of my talk: how the Saka culture of Central Asia intrude the northern China and where they reach out. I think they reach out to Korean Peninsula. Okay, let's start in detail. Saka culture refers to the group of people who built great burial mound and create gold relics based on the nomadic economy of Central Asia centered in Kazakhstan. In other words, Saka is a separate steppe culture, quite distinct from the steppe culture of Siberia, which is regarded as part of the Scytho-Siberian world. Let's see. You see the Beshatir kurgan, the one of the biggest Saka kurgan in the Semirichi or Jetisu regions, and that was excavated in the 1950s and 60s. And so, so far, in some degree, in Korea, the most the famous kurgan of Eurasia was Bajilik in the Altai region. But the core region of that kurgan culture was not in the Altai, but in the Jetisu, the Semirichi. So, many people confused the Scytho-Siberian culture of the Eurasian steppe with the Kazakhstan of the Saka culture of the Kazakhstan. Yeah, wholly they lived on nomad culture, but art and some the way of living and the material culture differ from each other. So I'm now just concentrating just only the Saka culture of the Kazakhstan. In terms of Eurasian archaeology, Saka culture is characterized by its gold and its burial mound in Central Asia between the 8th and 3rd century BCE. In particular, the period between the 6th and the 3rd century BCE is known to be the golden age of Saka culture, with the widespread use of gold and building of the kurgan. Each mound built of piled stone with an interior wooden chamber tomb. Saka culture primarily characterized by this stone mound tomb is distributed particularly in the Jetisu region of western Kazakhstan. This results in the creation of Saka-style golden animal ornament. Some key examples are the famous Isi burial mound of Golden Man, as well as Bishatir, Shilitir burial mound, and recently they also found another examples of the Golden Man from Ilexaj and some like that, another ones. With this explanation, we can see that the main Saka culture was a nomadic culture that was dispersed throughout Central Asia around 800 to 300 BCE. However, the Saka culture marked a major change in the 4th century BCE. Around the time, the Kazakhstan Saka style of gold artifact penetrated throughout the Turpan Basin of Xinjiang and spread widely in the Great Wall region of North China. Then, on the highland of Yunnan and Sichuan and through Tibet. You can see this map, and this map show up their spread over the another region. So the intrusion could be the earliest Silk Road. So the first evidence of Saka's intrusion to east should be neighbored Xinjiang region. So let's see, the Turfan region found some gold materials. They were decorated by the fantastic animal style, and they are very similar to Pajirik and so Saka culture. Yes, Turpan Basin was a kind of the corridor to Eastern Asia, and the Saka influx was reached out to the Gansu corridor, and finally there was another significant and very famous material from the majiayuan tombs of Shirong culture. Yes, before that, let's take a look about the intrusion of Saka culture. You see the Saka style bronze in the Altai, I mean the Pajirik and the Tuba, but it's not so significant. The mainstream should be the Turfan Basin. Yes, and surprisingly, there was another route of the Saka bronze, Saka gold. It reached out to southwestern part of China, Yunnan and Sichuan, and so far they went to the East Chinese Sea regions. So we call it, this is also an ancient tea route, and in this mountainous region, in Tibet and Western Yunnan, you can find also another examples of this kind of Saka style. Yes, Saka style gold was a huge phenomenon at the time. So you see the Saka kurgans in the Xinjiang region and all the gold ornament. Okay, let's go back to their eastern intrusion in the Gansu province of China. The influx of Saka style culture reached to the Gansu corridor, and is well reflected on the majiayuan tomb of the Shirong culture. The ornament and gilt belt were with highly exaggerated animals excavated from this site, and this can be seen to influenced by Saka style. So you see, there are just significance the gold man from majiayuan. You can see the comparison of the Isi gold man and the majiayuan gold man. Yes, they are very similar each other, but there's some differences. In the majiayuan people, he ride on the chariot, and there was many Chinese vessels and another ornament like jade. Anyway, they share the same tradition of the gold belt. No other people symbolize their status by the gold belt, and so this show up the majiayuan people are strongly related with the Saka people. Okay, let's go further to the east. The eastward spreading Saka culture was also found on the famous Ordos plateau. And some examples are like Hulustai and Yulongtai, some site. And it is worth mentioning that a golden diadem was discovered in the site of Aluchaidang, and nothing like it can be found in the western region of Saka culture. Surprisingly, Saka culture, Saka people, didn't wear gold crown. they just wear the high-peaked hat. Yeah, because they are nomad people, so they cannot wear the heavy gold crown. But in Ordos Plateau, people start to wear the hair gold ornament. It means that from the differences of the geographical situation, the nomad culture has changed. Yes, that's Silk Road. Silk Road always assimilated, and they also adapted to another geographical and social circumstance. I suggest that there was a sudden social integration of the nomads and in the 4th century, extending to the border of China into the Ordos region through a sudden expansion. And okay, let's go further until to the Beijing, the capital of China. The eastward expansion of Saka culture reached as far as the Yanshan mountain region around Beijing. In the 4th century, there was a Chinese warring state Yan, dynasty Yan, existed. In the royal tombs garden of the Yanshatu, the capital of the dynasty Yan, there was a tomb named Xinjiang. In the number 30th tomb of Xinjiang, archaeologists excavate a very fluent and there was a big discovery of the gold ornament. And in that cemetery, we excavated the nomadic culture and the Saka style bronze, like you see, like this one. There was, if we just take a look without any information, we might think that this all was found and made in this Kazakhstan or in the Altai region. Yeah, it's the typical Saka culture. They were found in the Beijing region, in the center of Dynasty Yan. It means there was a strong influx of the Saka culture. Okay, and another question, who made this? It just import or Chinese made? My answer is that there should be the Chinese craft also engaged in making this kind of Saka style gold, because the back side of this ornament there was a Chinese hieroglyphs, Chinese characters written about the amount and the grams of these materials. So it's very natural that Chinese craftsmen also engaged in Saka style bronze, and it's very important to understand the extension of Silk Road, because the craftsmen learned how the Saka style bronze gold make, and then craftsmen could migrate and they could work in various regions. Like this in Dynasty Han, in the whole China, Saka style, animal style have became popular from southern China until the Beijing, and everywhere you can find this Saka style bronze and gold material in the Chinese noble tombs. So this also is another reason for the extension of the earliest Silk Road. Okay, that's all for the Chinese the intrusion until the China. In the next chapter, I will talk about the their intrusion to Korean Peninsula. And let's talk about the influence of Saka culture to Korea. I mean, in the early Silla. As we talked about above, in the 4th century, a drastic cultural transformation swept through the Great Wall region of China with the rise of early Xiongnu and Saka's intrusion. The historical background of this transformation can be found in the territorial governance process in such projects as the building of the Great Wall during the warring state period of China. Between the 4th and 2nd century BCE, the movement of nomadic people living around the Great Wall triggered massive cultural changes in the surrounding areas, as the cultural characteristics widely distributed around the Great Wall region in the 4th century BCE were very different from those of previous periods. It is clear that this was related to the influx of the widespread Saka culture of Central Asia, not only the Great Wall region, but also the further Manchuria and China. So let's talk about some materials. These are the dragon-shaped gold buckle found from Pyongyang of North Korea, and another one from Silk Road from Fortress Yanqi of Xinjiang. And then another one, there was another Dalian from Liaoning and southern part of the China. Yes, with the participation of gold craftsmen from China, the Saka style became more popular and popular. So the prestige material of Saka gold buckle reached out of North Korea. But another striking case of steppe culture influx to South Korea is the animal style bronze from the wooden coffin tombs at Tapdong, Gyeongju of Korea. Gyeongju is the capital of the Silla. In this tomb were found iron weaponry, bronze horse equipment, a Chinese mirror, and a bronze belt hook in a tiger-shaped style. Yeah, typically we date that from 2nd to 1st century BCE. And this, as you see, the tiger-style belt hook, identical to the Tapdong example, can be traced to the belt hook from Qingshui Liaoping tombs from Gansu corridor, where the majiayuan and Shirong culture thrived. In addition, a horse girder featuring a colored animal from Tapdong is identical to the one from Xinjiang-to, and not only Xinjiang-to, also found from the Mongolia and another in the northern region of China. As evidence, this nomad style or Saka style artifact from the early Silla period, or we call it Jinhan, the same meaning, of the Korean Peninsula show consistent relevance to those found in the Great Wall region of China around the 4th century BCE. This period coincides with the date of which Saka style culture thrived in the northern region of the Great Wall. The influx of Saka culture into the Korean Peninsula was triggered during the warring state period by the expansion of the Yuan dynasty, and furthermore, the construction of the Great Wall in the Qin and Han period. This is also precisely related to the building of the Great Wall and another Chinese force to the nomad people. And the Great Wall means to mark their territory during the warring state area. So the steppe, when they built the Great Wall, the steppe nomad people and Chinese, they should fight each other because there was a significant line, a borderline. So after that, the expansion of China and conflict caused nomad tribes to endure stress, and subsequently some of them were assimilated and some of them flew to other regions. in the 2 and 4th century BCE. So some could float into Korea. So I took a glimpse our historical record and found very interesting phrase. Historical records show that one group undergoing this migration or flight or exile had to Jinhan statelet in the southeastern part of Korea over the early Silla, as shown below. Some old men of Jinhan, former Silla, state that they immigrated to avoid compulsory labor on the Great War. Their language is similar not only to that of the dynasty Yenenji, but also with Jin, written by Qinshou Sanguoji. The text on Jinan in Sanguoji, or record of the three kingdoms, the most essential history record on which one can base a study of ancient Korean history, shows that the formation of early Silla include the migration of nomadic people from northern China. The credibility of this record is very high. It's one of the base Bible for ancient Korean history. So, and after that text, he described many vocabularies material that are different from Korean language. So, I think that this credibility of this record is very high. I want to emphasize the wide expansion of Saka culture from Central Asia, mainly the eastern part of Kazakhstan, to Xinjiang and the Great Wall area of China during the 4th, 2nd century BCE were deeply influential in this period. The great Chinese warring states built the Great Wall to enforce territorial governance. Subsequently, those conflicts with such northern people as recorded Linhu, Donghu, Lofan, Shilo, and early Shungnu. All of these were characterized by their Saka style material cultures. At Xinjiang-tou, located in Yanshi-tou, had yielded plenty of Saka style ornament. Yeah, in this material also you can find a Europoid figure with a pig-topped head. Pig-topped head was as a symbol for Saka people. We can meet this kind of people with pig-top head from Persepolis until Beijing. It's amazingly, they have to share the one style of the hairstyle, I mean the head. So this is also a distinguishing feature of the Saka people, and it's worth mentioning that similar representation of head also found in Silla. Yeah, actually, we don't have the direct evidence of the correlation of Shilla's pig-topped head with this kind of the Saka pig-topped head. But the further study could trace the exact evidence. So I think that in this time it's just kind of the hypothesis. Similarly, in the area of Beijing, the Yan dynasty played an intermediary role between the nomadic people and the people of the Korean Peninsula. This means that the sentence quote above from the Sanguoji is verifiable. Furthermore, this kind of influx strongly implies the extension of pre-Han period Silk Road to Korea. When you take into consideration that there was an influx of steppe culture from the Great Wall region before Silla, then we can re-examine the previous discussed idea of that Silla has extensive relations with an influence from Eurasia, which has been a hot potato in Korean archaeology and ancient history for almost a century, ever since the discovery of the stone-built kurgan with its wooden chamber tomb in Gyeongju in 1921. Yes, there was 100 years ago, there was a excavated Geumgwanchong, the Golden Crown tomb, exactly 100 years ago, and that triggered the hypothesis of the Shilla's origin from Eurasian steppe. This is because the stone kurgan suddenly appeared in the 4th century CE, remained for nearly 2 centuries, and then abruptly disappeared. It has never been discovered in other places throughout Korea. Such coffins are found only in the Gyeongdo region and are unlike the other Tamli of Goguryeo, Baekje, Gaya. Nevertheless, the international archaeological community has focused on the wooden chamber tombs and inferred the relationship between the two regions in discussions has been kept intentionally ambiguous due to the lack of researchers who can authoritatively examine and coordinate the archaeology of two regions. As you see, the similarity of the construction of tomb is significant, and also the exterior view is also shared. They also share, and there are another many evidence of the Scylla's relation with the steppe, like the flying horse of the Bajiri culture and Scylla. And there's a golden sword and scabbard from Gerimno Gyeongju has the share, the same one from the Kazakhstan, the Boroboye, Kazakhstan, and the same the golden sword scabbard was found from the Gizil mirror from the Xinjiang. So obviously, this Gerimno found gold sword was imported, maybe donated. I think that it is so precious, so they cannot trade. There should be a diplomatic relation. Yeah, there's so many unsolved problem in this matter. And another is like this kind of deformed head of skulls of Scylla and Hans. And gold crown similarity. Yes, the similarity, yes, similarity. But it doesn't mean some kind of the great migration. So there was no any significant evidence of the great migration. But every the features of gold Scylla show up. They are strong, likeness and maybe some kind of the willingness to identify as the steppe peoples. Yes, but there was no any previous evidence, so people just has been in questions, and there's no any the actual answers. But if we take into consideration that there was the earlier evidence of the Scylla and steppe and Silk Road, maybe we can reach closer to the answer. Since the 4th century CE, a huge cultural change in Russia, also known as the Great Migration Period, was represented by the Huns or Shungnu, and subsequently Scylla also recognized this phenomenon. As you see, there was so many nations who had self-confidence of the descendant of Shungnu. Scylla, Eftal, about so many nations, about more than 15 states in the Great Migration period had self-confidence of the descendant of Shungnu. And Scylla also showed up their strong the self-confidence of Shungnu. So all of these things is not a coincidence. All this was intended by the hegemony of the Scylla people. So all this period has concerned with the rising of new governance in Scylla. Scylla, when this phenomenon has recognized, there was a new system of governance. We call it Maritgan. Maritgan means it's just kind of king. And Nemul, king. Nemul Maritgan. And there was of the Kim clan established of hereditary monarchy. Until that, there was the three lineages had succeeded in sequence. but from Nemulmarikan, only Kim clan monopolized all this monarchy and identifying their lineage as being from Shungnu. And they liked import many this kind of steppe cultures, imported exotic goods. The significance of the Eurasian style kurgan and many exotic elements of Silla lie in their long interrelationship with the early Silla, and the rise of Shungnu influenced. So, the Silla's self-confidence from the descendant of the steppe was not invented at that Nemulmarikan period. There was some group or maybe some people who had a strong relationship with the early Silk Road from Jinan period, and in the Nemulmarikan period, to establish their own strong monarchy, Kim clan made use of this kind of the new hegemony ideas and ideology. So this is why Silla kept going. Their strong self-confidence of the steppe culture, concerned with their political situation. But the origin of this kind of steppe Eurasian relationship started from the early Silla period. And so earlier, about 400 years from the foundation of Nemulmarikan. So I explained how the early Silk Road had appeared in Korea. My talk emphasized that a cultural comparison between Korea and other regions must be performed from a cultural conversation perspective, and the study of the Silk Road in the 21st century must stem from a mindset open to various cultures. I expect that this study can re-establish the relationship between Korea and the Silk Road in terms of cultural interchange between Eurasia and the Korean Peninsula through archaeological analysis of the cultural interchange between the Korean Peninsula and the Silk Road region and steppe. This study can present a model for archaeological communication between East Asia and Eurasia and reveal the concept of the Silk Road, including in it the relationship between the Korean Peninsula and Northern Eurasia from a cultural exchange perspective. Finally, I hope that my intent to balance and extend our focus beyond the mainland of China and perspective on documentary heritage and also documentary materials on archaeology. And this could help us make some analysis and investigation beyond the borderlines. And that will benefit the conditions of Asian archaeology and international concerns for the